Most people shade with blending and gradients, and you can also shade with texture. Currently, I'm setting up my project, so this way I have my ruler, my erasers, my value pencils, my pencils with different value scales, my tortillon or stump, and even my tissue. I have a math ruler set that helps me do straight lines or 90-degree angles. And I even have my viewfinder to help me see the picture from my computer a lot easier. I can line things up. You see me right now measuring my proportions. Again, I'm looking at the whole thing and then I'm breaking it down to see how many times it fits. I figured out 5 across and 3 down is good for the bowl. And then it's like 2 for the box. At least vertical wise it's 2 and the width would be about 3. I'm checking now for the diagonals. I'm using my pencil by turning it to the side to try to get the diagonals. And now I'm lightly sketching. Anytime you start shading, always start light. I always go a little heavier because I am heavy-handed, but also so it's easier to see on camera. Now my camera is a little bit crooked for now, but it will improve. I'm trying to figure out the shapes, and you're going to see me use a new tool that I didn't ask you guys to buy, but it's just good to know that it exists. So right now I'm still just working with the width, my height and my width, and I'm slowly putting in the values. I start putting like little circles and lines just so I can see where my highlights should be. I try not to shade within those little markings. I'm using a 2H pencil to start with, and then I go to an HB. The outer lines are definitely HB. Now notice that I creased the paper here. It actually becomes helpful when I am doing the box. The box does open, so it actually looks like it was intentional. But always remember to put something like a smooth piece of paper behind your art piece so you don't make an impression. I ended up accidentally making an impression, but it works. Now I have all my markings above that you can now see 1 through 5, and my numbers to help me remember my units of how wide and how tall this bowl is. I'm also using my eraser to draw with. This project I have the gum eraser, the kneaded eraser, and of course the rubber eraser from my pencil. As always said before, my favorite way to measure is with the pencil because it's the easiest thing to use when out and about in the world. These same methods you can use when you are looking at an actual still life in front of you. I would hope that you would draw the bowl in person, but it's a lot easier, it seems, for everybody to draw from picture. So always have a way to measure and plot how big it's supposed to be on your page. This is a French curve, and it helps me get the lines sharper instead of just using a straight ruler and then trying to pretend that the curve is going to be easy to draw. You could also use a compass, a plate, a cup, anything that you have on hand to help you get curves you can use. So I have 2 compasses there. Now this is one of my favorite rulers. I usually use it for sewing, but you can see the height and the width a lot easier with that type of ruler. Now I'm going to plot out some value scales using different mark making techniques. I'm going to start off with the gradient. With the gradient, I'm going to use the tortillon or the stump to blend. I'm starting with my 2H pencils, and then I work up to a 6B pencil. I didn't bring that many pencils for this drawing, but always try to make the darkest part of your artwork away from the light. And even your cast shadow, which I mentioned is usually going to be blocked by the object and the table or whatever is resting on. Here you will see I'm doing what's called hashing marks for number 2 and cross hatching for number 3. You could use these techniques to shade instead of just using the gradient. Right here, for the 4th one, I'm using the flat end of the pencil. For the fifth one, I'm using impression, so I'm making darker shades and tones or texture with an object underneath the paper. In this next technique, I'm filling in the values, and then I'm going to use my eraser with my ruler to help me get a sharp texture. This is good for highlights. I'm going to use the kneaded eraser so I could get a softer erase textured, which I tend to use on the right side of the bowl for lightness removal. I'm using some stippling right now, which is just dots. The closer together the dots, the darker. I'm using a B pencil just to be faster. And this is parallel line shading. The closer the lines are together, it's going to make it look darker. And these help with texture. And here's a short stroke, which I'm going to use at the base of the bowl. So this way it has like a cross contour feel. The more you use in your project, or the less you use, depending on what your style is, it adds a specific look. So try doing the bowl maybe a couple of times and using these textures and see which one you like. Now I am mostly using gradient, but I do show you that I'm trying to use the lines for some texture and just to feel. Anytime you shade, I like to figure out the cross contour and try to follow it. I stopped a little short with my shadows there and I didn't go into blend it. But again, the more time and effort you put into your project, the better the blending, the shading will be. I gave myself only an hour, so this way I can make the video. And I think it comes out decent, but again, if I worked a little bit more, I could fix it. Most artists are not happy with their final project, and always know you can erase and redraw as many times as you want, even the day after. Now for homework assignment, you just got to hand it in on time, but you could work on it once you hand it in. Finish working on it after you hand it in. So I guess the better term is edit. Now I'm at the base of the bow, so I'm using the cross contour and the tortillon stick, or the blending stump if you wish, and I'm erasing to bring back the highlights. Usually you're planning this in your brain, what you think you want to use. Always have your value scale ready, so this way it's easier to pick which pencil you need. As you can see, my stump was a little dirty, so I try to clean it. Usually these stumps come with sandpaper pads that it helps you scrape off the graphite. But in this case, I just use a normal piece of paper to clean up my stump. Here's the French curve again. I end up losing a bit of the shape and then I have to reshade it. So always be careful when you're using tools. Now, when you have two values that are contrasting really hard, you have to really pay attention to the line. So in my case, it definitely looks curved, but once it gets to the left, I kind of lost the shape of that curve. So just take your time. Now the right side is definitely light and where the light source is, and to make it pop out, I darken the background darker than the photo. That's a trick you can use to make anything pop out. As you can see with the highlight on the left, that's coming from a window source. It kind of looks like a reflection. But since the bow is shiny, that's the reason why you have that reflection or highlight on the left. Normally there wouldn't be such a strong highlight on the left, since I'm using one light source on the right. Setting up your project is the most important part. Once you find the way you like to measure and plot out your piece, you usually will be able to shade real quick right after. For me, setting up, I usually rush through it more than necessary, so take your time. Here's a better look at the textures. Have a great day.